The NFL is back for another season. Johnny Sports Network here to provide you with my Week 1 NFL predictions. And what a week we have in store for the return of the NFL. It all starts off on Thursday night with the rematch in the AFC Championship game between the Ravens and Chiefs. The Packers and Eagles will play in Brazil on Friday night. And a lot of other storylines. We have Jim Harbaugh's return to the NFL after coaching Michigan to a national title this past season. We also have a rematch of the wild card round on Sunday Night Football between the Rams and Lions. Aaron Rodgers is back, and his season debut on the road against the 49ers on Monday Night Football. Without further ado, let's get to the Week 1 NFL predictions. Thursday Night Football, Ravens and Chiefs. For the Chiefs, their quest for a three-peat begins, while the Ravens, not only did they lose their defensive coordinator to the Seahawks, but they lost a total of 15 players in free agency, which was tied for the most with the Vikings. They did, however, sign Derrick Henry in the offseason. Not only are the Ravens looking to go all in to dethrone the Chiefs in the AFC, but this alarming stat from the AFC Championship game is a big reason why they signed Derrick Henry, whether you want to believe that or not. Because the truth of the matter is Derrick Henry is not getting any younger. He is getting up there in age. But the Ravens only ran the ball 16 times in the AFC Championship game. And that is a stat that is very alarming when you think about how the Ravens have been successful over these past few seasons by running the football early and often. And it's a big key of a game plan to defeat a team like the Chiefs. To run the football early and often, to drain the clock, keep the Chiefs offense on the sidelines, keep them cold, and try to frustrate them by being out on the field for so long. Hollywood Brown will not play in this game for the Chiefs, but I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win this game by exactly 3 points. Not only is Patrick Mahomes 4-1 against Lamar Jackson in his career, but the spread for this game is exactly 3 points. I just find it pretty interesting how the spread went from -2.5 to exactly 3 points. I know that a lot of the times that they do give or take a half a point most of the time anyway, but I just feel like that they know that this is the start of the NFL season. They know that people are replacing bets left and right all throughout the entire season. They don't want people to win or lose either. It's just let's refund everybody to keep them wanting to bet. So Chiefs by 3. Packers, Eagles, Friday night in Brazil. Both teams signed a running back in the offseason, and both of these running backs, when they are fully healthy, are at the bare minimum a top 7 running back in the league. For the Packers, Josh Jacobs, and for the Eagles, Saquon Barkley. I anticipate that both of these teams will assert the ground game early and often in this matchup. Jordan Love, he did sign an extension in the offseason, as I was very open about how confident that I am in Jordan Love at this time last season. And now all eyes are going to be on Jordan Love to see if he can repeat what he did last season. As Jordan Love, he really got to his stride in the second half of the season, and the Thanksgiving game against the Lions was really the turning point for the Packers season last year. But in a game where I anticipate that both running games are going to be the X factor in this game, as I anticipate that both quarterbacks will be able to hold their own in this matchup. I am going to go with the Eagles simply because I just feel like their offensive line, despite Jason Kelce retiring, I just still think that the Eagles' offensive line is at least going to be talented and strong enough to provide a better running game for Saquon Barkley than the Packers' offensive line will be able to provide for Josh Jacobs. I'm going to pick the Eagles to win by a touchdown in this unique game in Brazil, as this is the first time that I think the NFL has ever gone to South America, at least for a long time. Steelers and Falcons. One of the storylines going into week one that is not getting as much attention as others, former Falcons head coach Arthur Smith is now the offensive coordinator for the Steelers. Arthur Smith is now going up against his former team to start the season. The Steelers named Russell Wilson the starting quarterback for week one at least. The question is Russ Wilson going to remain the starting quarterback throughout the season? As they did acquire Justin Fields in the offseason, the Falcons, they signed Kirk Cousins in free agency, and they drafted Michael Penix Jr. with the 8th pick in April's draft. We have seen what Mike Tomlin has accomplished with the Steelers. Never finished below 500. More often than not, in the playoffs, at least in the playoff picture as the season is winding down. But the Steelers, to me, right now, they are one of two teams that I find absolutely unpredictable in the league, with the other being the Seahawks. As they are both really the same team, in my opinion, teams that we have no idea what they're going to bring to the table each week, as especially defensively. One week, either of those teams, they feel like they look like a top 5 defense in the league. Another week, they can look like a bottom 5 defense in the league. But I am going to predict that despite the hype the Falcons are getting in this offseason by adding in Kirk Cousins to their offense, which is a major upgrade, I'm going to predict that the Steelers win this game, as I do feel like we get the good Steelers this week. At least the Steelers defense that looks like a top 5 defense in the league. As there are still a little bit of question marks on the Falcons defense, as they did lose defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen to the Jaguars in the offseason. Cardinals and Bills. And if I remember correctly, the last time these two teams faced off against each other, it was the best ending to an NFL game that I had seen in a while at that time. The Cardinals winning on a last-second Hail Mary pass, and now going into the 2024 season. These are two teams that I'm looking forward to finding out how the season plays out. For the Bills, a lot of question marks. They've lost quite a bit of pieces, including Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. And for the Cardinals, Kyler Murray is now back and ready to play a full season since his ACL injury. And I do think that this game is going to be very high scoring, even though the Bills, they've lost significant pieces from last season. And I do feel like if the Bills, if they don't get past the divisional round this season, I do think the Bills may part ways with Sean McDermott because of the fact that there is not really much upside to having a defensive mind as a head coach in this era of the NFL. Who is going to be that wide receiver one for the Bills? Is it going to be tight end Dalton Kincaid, or is it going to be rookie receiver Keon Coleman? I do think that Keon Coleman is going to get a significant amount of targets this season, but I do think that Dalton Kincaid is going to have at least 9 touchdowns this season. I still think Josh Allen will be Josh Allen. I just want to see if he's going to clean up on those interceptions a little bit. I think in a very high-scoring game, I have the Bills winning this one, but I do think the Cardinals are very talented offensively to stay in this game to make it a track meet. I have the Bills winning, but I think the Cardinals, they cover those 6 points. Titans and Bears. Caleb Williams makes his NFL debut, and the Bears have been putting in a lot of work to surround Caleb Williams with talent. They acquired Keenan Allen in the offseason, DeAndre Swift. They drafted Rome Odunze with the 9th pick in April's draft. And they acquired DJ Moore last season. As expectations are high for the Bears, as he has already been receiving hype and being labeled as a generational talent, many speculate that he could become the next Patrick Mahomes. But I want to see at least 4 or 5 games out of Caleb Williams to see him fully adapt to the league. Meanwhile, the Titans, the expectations for the Titans are very low. And I do feel like that it's surprising for people. Well, it's not surprising for people to say the expectations for the Titans are very low. But I just feel like the moves the Titans have made in the offseason, I do feel like it has gone really unnoticed. I think the Titans are going to be a better team than what most people are thinking. In fact, I'm calling for the upset in this game. I am picking the Titans to win this game, as I do feel like that for the Titans, this is the perfect time to play a team like the Bears during the season and in week 1, where nobody knows anything, where they're playing real competitive football for the first time this season, and we just don't know what to expect. As a team that doesn't have many expectations, where the expectations are low, like the Titans, all you can do is go up. And I think this is going to be an upset this week that not many people are going to see coming. I have the Titans pulling off this upset, as Caleb Williams is still getting his first experience in the National Football League. Patriots and Bengals. For the Patriots, it's a new era. Jerod Mayo making his coaching debut. For the Bengals, Joe Burrow is back and fully healthy after sustaining a hand injury against the Ravens last season, which sidelined him for the majority of the year. But I find this very interesting, how the Patriots are starting Jacoby Brissett at quarterback instead of Drake May. Now, logically, you could think, okay, well, maybe the Patriots, they just want Drake May to learn a little bit behind Jacoby Brissett. However, Jerod Mayo essentially said that it was the Patriots' offensive line that cost Drake May the starting job, which that really surprised me the way he said it. He essentially said that his offensive line just isn't good right now. But my thought process is, he talked in his opening press conference about how it's important to get the best players available. I have nothing against Drake May, but I personally just feel like someone like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Joe Alt could have been a better option for the 3rd overall pick than Drake May, especially now the way that you're treating Drake May. You're saying that because your offensive line isn't good enough is why Drake May isn't going to be the starting quarterback, which I have a feeling Drake May is going to be the starter by the end of the first half of the year. I just feel that way because eventually the crowd is going to start chanting, "We want Drake," or "We want May," or they'll be chanting his name. But when it's all said and done, I think the Bengals, they win this game no matter what, as there are talks that Ja'Marr Chase may not be playing in this game as he is holding out for a new deal, but I think the Bengals, they'll be just fine without him. And I do feel like the Bengals, I do think they are a prime candidate in your survivor leagues this week. Although I don't know if you want to use a team like the Bengals this early, but just a recommendation on my end, take it with a grain of salt. But I had the Bengals winning. Texans and Colts. The last time we saw these two teams face off against each other, week 18 in a win and you're in the playoffs game, where the Colts lost off of a dropped pass on 4th and 1 to end their season. The Texans moved on and they won their wild card game against the Browns, but then they fell just short to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. But the Texans, they went all in this offseason. They acquired Stephon Diggs. They acquired Joe Mixon. And the Texans are now establishing themselves, at least right now, as a team on paper that could be second in line in the AFC, given everything the Ravens lost in the offseason. And given that the Bengals, I'm still not sure where they stand right now, given that Ja'Marr Chase is holding out and waiting for a new deal. But I'm going to be honest, this is the one game this week I am the least confident in. I'm anticipating a breakout season for Anthony Richardson. I think that Anthony Richardson is a sleeper to win league MVP. And I'm anticipating the Texans are a serious Super Bowl contender, given what they did in the offseason to go all in. In the game I am the least confident in this week, I am going with the Texans. And this just feels like a coin flip to me, but I am going with the Texans. I do like this matchup. A battle of two of the up-and-coming stars in the NFL and C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson. And I do think we're in for a high-scoring game in this one. I can't wait to see this game go down. Jaguars and Dolphins. And this is another matchup this week that I am not too confident in. I would say this is the game that I am the second least confident on, behind Texans and Colts. I have a feeling that Tyreek Hill, he does eclipse 2,000 yards this season. Because whether you want to believe it or not, these athletes, they care about the records and the accolades. They can say that it's a team game all they want. They can say that it's about the team all they want. But deep down, they care about the records and accolades, especially in the situation Tyreek Hill is in. Where Tyreek Hill, he would have gotten the 2,000 yards, I feel like, if he didn't have to miss a game and a half for an injury. I feel like with how much he is effective and how much he is a mismatch for everyone in the NFL, he could have easily eclipsed 2,000 yards. And I know he wants that this season. Nothing against Tyreek Hill, but he can say all he wants throughout the season, if and when he gets asked about it, that it's all about the team, that the records aren't important to me. It is. And Trevor Lawrence, he did, both quarterbacks, they got extensions in the offseason. Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa, they both got extended in the offseason. And I just can't wait to see these two go at it. It's unfortunate we have C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson and Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa facing off against each other at the same time. But I'm going to go with the Dolphins in this game, and I personally can't wait to see how the Dolphins look offensively. Is the Dolphins offensively the last couple of seasons, they have been must-watch TV, at least ever since Mike McDaniel came along. The Dolphins, they've been must-watch TV. I think the Dolphins, they win a high-scoring game. I'm personally not sold on either of these defenses right now, so I do think that we'll see a lot of points this game, and I have the Dolphins winning. Panthers and Saints. For the Panthers, it is the first game for new head coach Dave Canales. And Dave Canales, he is a great offensive mind in the game, as he has really turned the careers of Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield around. And his next mission is to change the trajectory of Bryce Young's career. And I do think that he is capable of doing that. As the Panthers, they did acquire Deontay Johnson in the offseason. I don't think the Panthers are going to win this game in particular. I have the Saints winning this matchup. But I am very intrigued to see year one of Dave Canales and Bryce Young. I want to see how much Bryce Young is going to improve. And I just feel like with an offensive mind like Dave Canales, given his recent reputation, I do think that Bryce Young is in for a really good year, but I don't think it's going to be a good week necessarily. I do have the Saints winning this matchup. Vikings and Giants. For the Vikings, anything that can go wrong in an offseason has gone wrong for the Vikings. And personally, I am rooting for the Vikings not only in this game, but throughout the entire season with what they've been dealing with throughout the entire offseason. While the Giants, it is a prove-it year for Daniel Jones. As the Giants, they passed on drafting a quarterback in April's draft, as this is what essentially is a last chance for Daniel Jones to prove himself not only for the Giants, but for any NFL franchise. Because we truly don't know what the Giants are thinking. Maybe if Daniel Jones has a decent year, or even a better than expected year, maybe the Giants, they draft a quarterback in April anyway. And then Daniel Jones finds himself in a different organization. But I'm going to pick the upset in this game. I do feel like that the Giants, I don't necessarily know how well they're going to do this year, how bad they're going to do this year. But with week one, first impressions are everything. And week one is truly the unknown. And I've seen some people say, well, the Giants will probably win maybe 3 or 4 games this season. I do feel like if they were to only win 3 or 4 games this season, then this feels like an ideal one of those 3 or 4 victories. I'm going to pick the Giants to pull off the upset in what is the start of Daniel Jones's prove-it year. Not only for the Giants, but for the entire league. Raiders and Chargers. The Raiders parted ways with Josh McDaniels in the middle of the 2023 season, and they named Antonio Pierce the interim head coach. And in January, they made it official. Antonio Pierce was named the head coach for the Raiders, which I felt like that was the right move, as the Raiders, they did learn from their mistakes from a few seasons ago. in their first game of the season against the Chargers in Jim Harbaugh's return to the NFL. The Chargers, they lost their top two receivers from last season in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So who is going to establish themselves as the number one receiver in Jim Harbaugh's offense? Is it going to be Ladd McConkey? Or will Quentin Johnston, will he shock the world and have a good season for the Chargers? The Chargers, over the years, they have been notorious for losing one-possession games. And I am going to call for another upset here. I think the Raiders, they pull off this upset against the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh, he is coaching the Chargers for the wrong reasons. Do I think he really cares for the organization? Yes. Do I think he's passionate about rebuilding the Chargers? Yes. But you have to understand that he returned to the NFL for all the wrong reasons, as he knew he was going to have the consequences of his actions at Michigan. He knew that he was going to be caught in 4K. He knew Michigan was going to be caught in 4K. In fact, it's been established that Michigan and himself, they have been caught in 4K, and he knew the sanctions were coming. He knew the consequences were coming, and he took this opportunity with the Chargers, and he left Michigan, because how often do we see a coach who just wins a national championship just leave? The Raiders, I have pulling off this upset as they named Gardner Minshew the starting quarterback. And Gardner Minshew is a serviceable quarterback. If you tell Gardner Minshew on game day, hey, we need about 270 passing yards, a couple touchdown passes, but don't turn the ball over, he can get that accomplished for you. And I think he'll get that accomplished in this game against the Chargers as the Raiders pull off the upset. Broncos and Seahawks. The Broncos named Bo Nix the starting quarterback for the Broncos heading into the 2024 season. And the Seahawks, I mentioned earlier during the Steelers and Falcons breakdown, that the Seahawks are a lot like the Steelers, where you truly don't know what to expect, as they feel fairly inconsistent, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Are we going to get the Seahawks defense where it looks like the Legion of Boom is back? Or are we going to get the Seahawks defense that looks like a bottom tier defense in the league? I almost went with the upset on this one. As we saw last season, the Broncos get off to a really slow start. But then as the season went along, the Broncos, they started to win some games. Their defense started to rise to the occasion. I do think that the Broncos defense may be able to keep the Broncos in this game. But I do feel like at the end of the day, I do think the Seahawks, they do get the win. And I do think we see the Seahawks perform really well defensively in this game against rookie quarterback Bo Nix. As rookie quarterbacks, they do not always have the most success in the beginning of a season. And I'm going with the Seahawks. Cowboys and Browns. This will be Tom Brady's debut in the broadcast booth. And what a matchup for Tom Brady to make his broadcasting debut. Two of the best defenses in the entire league last season. And when I first saw the spread for this game, where I saw the Browns were favored by 2.5, I had to really think, why are the Browns favored by 2.5 in this matchup? Besides the reason that the Browns are the home team, as they do say the home team, they do get about 3 points every single time. Well, the Browns not only are they really good defensively? Even though the last time we saw the Browns on the field, they had an abysmal performance against the Texans in the playoffs. Same thing for the Cowboys. A very good team defensively, one of the best defenses in the league. But the last time we saw them, an abysmal performance against the Packers in the playoffs. The Browns were 8-1 at home last season. And for that, I almost wanted to pick the Cowboys. In fact, I was leaning towards the Cowboys this whole time until it came down to hitting the record button. But if this comes back to taunt me than it does, I'm going to pick the Browns to win this game, as I just feel like the Browns are at least better equipped right now defensively, as the Browns have a really strong secondary. Myles Garrett, a very frightening athlete. And I just think in a defensive game, believe it or not, I don't think this game is high scoring at all. I think this game ideally is going to be 21-14, believe it or not. And this is including the fact that the Cowboys are very strong offensively. And Dak Prescott had a really strong season, an MVP type of season last year. I think the Browns win in a fairly low-scoring game. Commanders and Buccaneers. Jayden Daniels makes his NFL debut, and he will have Cliff Kingsbury as his offensive coordinator, who was recently the offensive coordinator for USC, where he worked with Caleb Williams, and now he will work with Jayden Daniels. Cliff Kingsbury is known to be a great offensive mind. While the Buccaneers, how will Baker Mayfield first look without Dave Canales, the man who changed the trajectory of Baker Mayfield's career? The Commanders are now coached by Dan Quinn, who was recently the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. Before that, he was the head coach for the Falcons, where he is known for 28-3 in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Then he was let go by the Falcons not even 2-3 seasons later. And the last time Dan Quinn was a part of an NFL game, it was a game where the Cowboys defense looked completely unprepared and they were outplayed by the Packers. I would not be surprised if the Commanders pulled off the upset in this game, but I'm personally not going to call for it. I'm going to pick the Buccaneers to win this matchup. And I'm very curious to see not only how Jayden Daniels looks, but how Baker Mayfield looks without Dave Canales. Rams and Lions, Sunday Night Football, a rematch of last season's wild card matchup on Sunday night. Matthew Stafford returning home to Detroit. Jared Goff taking on his former team. And I anticipate this game, there is going to be a lot of points in this game. For the Rams, Cooper Kupp is back to being fully healthy, as he did struggle to really get going at multiple points throughout last season. But Puka Nacua really stormed onto the scene in the NFL as a rookie last season, as he broke the record for most receptions by a wide receiver in their first 2 games. And overall, I just can't wait to see this game play out, as the Lions, they are coming off of an NFC Championship Game appearance, as they were one bad half away from making the Super Bowl. But now everybody is expecting the Lions to do really well, as the Lions in these past few seasons, they've been able to fly under the radar, but now people see the Lions as serious contenders to win the Super Bowl. So will that pressure get to them? But I will tell you this, they do have the right man in Dan Campbell to assure them that they don't need to be facing all of this pressure, even though, I'm going to be honest, there is pressure on the Lions to perform really well because the public is now expecting them to. But in a very high-scoring game, I'm going to predict the Lions to win, as Jared Goff, I read earlier today that Jared Goff is 7-0 against the spread in Week 1. And I have the history on my side for that one. But I do think this will be a very high-scoring game. The Lions, they win by 4, but Matthew Stafford throws an interception with 3 or 4 minutes left and they're unable to recover. It seems like that kind of game. Week 1 concludes with Monday Night Football, Jets and 49ers. Aaron Rodgers makes his return after an Achilles injury in Week 1 on Monday Night Football last season on the 4th play from scrimmage. And his returning game is against a ferocious 49ers defense. The 49ers, they are coming off of a Super Bowl defeat in overtime. And for the Jets, I do feel like Robert Saleh is on the hot seat going into this season. I think if the Jets don't make the playoffs this season, I do think Robert Saleh is on his way out, given the fact that there is little to no upside to having a defensive mind as a head coach in this new era of the NFL. And for the 49ers, as talented as a team that they are, on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, they kept Brandon Ayuk. They didn't trade him. There were rumors throughout the offseason that the 49ers were going to trade Brandon Ayuk, that Brandon Ayuk wanted to be traded, because he wasn't getting the deal that he wanted. But Brandon Ayuk, he did get the deal that he wanted, and I do feel like that he was deserving of it. Whether people want to believe it or not, as I do feel like Brandon Ayuk, he has really been overlooked as far as best receivers in the league. But he did get the deal he desired, and I do feel like he deserved it. I do feel like their championship window is closing faster than what people think, realize, and accept. As the 49ers, they have been going all in. They have been making moves throughout these past couple of seasons, including acquiring Christian McCaffrey to get them to that championship. But I do feel like if the 49ers don't win a Super Bowl within these next 3 seasons, I do think Kyle Shanahan is on his way out. As Kyle Shanahan, he has had opportunities to win a championship, but he has fallen just short. But in this game, in what's going to be, I feel like, a really great game, I feel like this couldn't have been a better matchup for Monday Night Football to start off the season. I am going with the 49ers, as they are going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder all season, with them falling short in the Super Bowl, a Super Bowl defeat. They will play with a chip on their shoulder throughout the entire season, and I do think that they get off to a strong start this season with a win. And that will do it for my Week 1 NFL predictions. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And also, I did upload my Week 2 college football predictions earlier. So this completes the Johnny Sports Network doubleheader. Until next time, enjoy the games this weekend, whether if it's college football or NFL. And until next time.